In the vast darkness between stars, where civilizations rise and fall like whispers in the cosmic wind, there exists a truth that most species learn too late. Some prayers are answered by forces far more terrible than any demon. The Galactic Council had sent their desperate plea across every frequency, through every quantum tunnel, past every stellar barrier their combined technologies could breach. Ancient races, wise beyond measure, had exhausted every diplomatic solution, every technological marvel, every strategic alliance. Their enemy was not just winning. It was erasing entire species from existence with methodical, cold precision. But there in the outer rim territories that even the boldest explorers marked as uninhabitable death zones, something stirred. Something that had been watching. Something that had been waiting. The humans had heard the cry for help, and they were coming. What the galaxy didn't understand was that they had just invited apex predators to their war. What they couldn't comprehend was that the same instincts that drove humans to adopt every stray animal, to risk everything for strangers, to charge into burning buildings, those very instincts, when properly motivated, could reshape the stars themselves. The enemy that had terrorized 1,000 worlds was about to learn why Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. They were about to discover what happens when you threaten the things that humans decide to protect. They had begged the stars for salvation. Instead, they got humanity's fury, and the universe would never be the same. High Counselor Zethkree's crystalline exoskeleton trembled as another report materialized on the holographic display before him. The Varex Empire had claimed another system. The Altair colonies, home to 12 billion Kentorians, had gone silent 3 standard days ago. The pattern was always the same. Communications ceased, automated distress beacons activated for precisely 4 hours and 17 minutes. Then, nothing but the cold void of space where once thriving worlds had existed. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been in continuous operation for 72 standard hours. Representatives from 47 species sat in their environmental pods within the great chamber of Nexus Prime, their varied forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, telepathic pulses, and harmonic vibrations that the universal translator struggled to keep pace with. Yet despite their linguistic diversity, their message was unified. They were losing the war. The Varex consumption rate has increased by 300% in the last solar month, announced Dr. Vela Moonrunner, the Etherian chief scientist whose gossamer wings flickered with distress patterns. Her people were among the most ancient in the galaxy, their civilization predating even the first council records. Yet now fear clouded her normally serene features. Our predictive models suggest complete galactic extinction within 18 standard months if this trajectory continues. Ambassador Thorek, whose rocky Letharian form stood nearly 4 meters tall, rumbled his disagreement through subharmonic frequencies. Extinction models are irrelevant. We need immediate military solutions. The combined fleet has 7,000 dreadnoughts, each equipped with quantum disruptor arrays. We must strike at the Varex core worlds before they can consolidate their latest acquisitions. A cacophony of protests erupted throughout the chamber. Captain Zara Quinn of the Aquarian Deep Fleet, her bioluminescent patches flashing red with agitation, spoke through her suit's external speakers. Military engagement has failed repeatedly. The Varex don't just defeat our forces, they absorb them. Every ship we send becomes part of their growing armada. Every captured crew member becomes another processing unit in their collective consciousness. The central hologram shifted, displaying the current tactical situation. What had once been a galaxy teeming with diverse civilizations now showed vast red zones where Varex influence had spread like a cancer. The remaining free territories formed an increasingly small archipelago of blue dots in an ocean of conquest. High Counselor Zethkree raised one of his 6 arms for silence, his bioluminescent crests pulsing with the authority of his office. Honored representatives, we face an enemy unlike any in galactic history. The Varex do not seek territory or resources in any conventional sense. They seek to integrate all organic and synthetic life into their collective. They view our diversity not as strength, but as inefficiency to be corrected. He manipulated the hologram, highlighting recent battle sites. Their vessels adapt to our weaponry in real time. Their boarding parties convert our personnel within minutes of contact. Most disturbing of all, their expansion appears to accelerate with each world they claim, as if they're not just gaining territory, but somehow becoming more efficient at the process of conquest itself. Representative Kixander of the insectoid hives, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with barely contained anxiety, transmitted her thoughts directly to the chamber's psychic amplifiers. My queens have calculated 17,000 possible strategic scenarios. In 0% of these calculations do we achieve victory through conventional warfare. The Varex have systematic advantages that compound exponentially with their expansion. The chamber fell into an uncomfortable silence, broken only by the ambient hum of life support systems, maintaining 47 different atmospheric compositions. For species that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, the word impossible was not commonly spoken in council chambers. It was Elder Cyrus of the Peaceful Brotherhood who finally voiced what many had been thinking, but none dared suggest. His aged features, marked by centuries of diplomatic wisdom, bore an expression of resignation mixed with desperate hope. Perhaps we must consider reaching beyond our established spheres of influence. The galaxy is vast, and our maps of the Outer Rim territories remain incomplete. You speak of the Deathworlds, rumbled Ambassador Thorek, his gravelly voice carrying notes of disbelief. Those systems are classified as uninhabitable for a reason. No intelligent life could evolve in such hostile environments. Dr. Moonrunner's wings rippled with uncertainty. Actually, our long-range surveys have detected anomalous energy signatures from several systems in the Outer Rim. Sector 847b, in particular, shows signs of industrial activity and organized electromagnetic emissions. The readings suggest a technological civilization, though the planetary conditions would theoretically preclude the development of complex life. Captain Quinn's bioluminescent patches shifted to deep blue, indicating intense concentration. My people have legends about the Outer Rim. Ancient songs speak of worlds where the very air burns, where gravity crushes visitors into paste, where radiation storms would sterilize our most protective vessels. But the songs also mention something else, the possibility of life so adapted to these conditions that it would seem like magic to us. High Counselor Zethkri accessed his personal databanks, scrolling through classified survey reports that few council members had ever seen. 3 standard years ago, one of our deep space reconnaissance drones detected structured radio transmissions from a system our charts label simply as Sol 3. The transmissions suggest a complex civilization, though the planet itself orbits within what we would consider a stellar death zone. Surface temperatures that fluctuate wildly, massive tectonic activity, an atmosphere with dangerous levels of oxygen, and gravitational forces that would require environmental suits for most council species. And yet they transmit, mused Dr. Moonrunner, which suggests not only survival, but technological development. Representative Kixander's psychic emanations carried notes of both hope and terror. If life can develop under such extreme conditions, what manner of beings might we be dealing with? Species that evolve in death worlds typically develop characteristics that peaceful civilizations find disturbing. The holographic display shimmered as High Counselor Zethkri uploaded the survey data for all representatives to examine. The planet that appeared before them was a study in beautiful chaos, swirling clouds obscuring vast continents, massive oceans that seemed to churn with endless motion, and polar ice caps that spoke to temperature extremes that would challenge even the most adaptive council species. The electromagnetic signatures suggest a globally distributed civilization. DR? Moonrunner observed, her scientific training overriding her species' natural caution. Multiple population centers, extensive industrial complexes, and what appears to be a spacefaring infrastructure. They've even placed artificial satellites in orbit around their world. Ambassador Thorek's mineral composition shifted, creating grinding sounds that indicated deep skepticism. Assuming these beings exist and could somehow assist us, what could Deathworld primitives offer that our combined civilizations cannot achieve? We represent the pinnacle of galactic evolution, the accumulated wisdom and technology of 47 species across millions of years. Desperation, Captain Quinn said quietly, her words carrying across the chamber with startling clarity. We could offer them something that all our wisdom and technology hasn't been able to provide, a chance to prove that even the most unlikely allies can make a difference. Elder Cyrus nodded slowly, his ancient features creased with the weight of impossible decisions. The Varex have demonstrated that our conventional approaches are insufficient. Perhaps it's time to consider unconventional solutions. If these outer rim beings have survived in conditions that would destroy us, they might possess capabilities we cannot imagine. High Counselor Zethkree found himself facing a choice that would define not just his leadership, but potentially the fate of galactic civilization. The logical part of his mind cataloged all the reasons why contacting unknown Deathworld entities was dangerous, unpredictable, and potentially catastrophic. The desperate part of his mind reminded him that they were losing the war, and conventional wisdom had already failed them. Very well, he announced, his decision resonating through both audible and psychic frequencies. We will craft a message to be transmitted to the Sol system. A plea for assistance, an explanation of our situation, and an offer of alliance. We will send this message on all frequencies and through all available transmission methods. Dr. Moonrunner's wings shimmered with nervous energy. And if they respond? What if these Deathworld beings are hostile? What if their evolution in such harsh conditions has made them aggressive, territorial, or incompatible with civilized society? High Counselor Zethkree looked around the chamber at the representatives of 47 civilizations, seeing in their varied forms the diversity that the Varex sought to eliminate. Then, we will have invited another predator to our war. But, given our current trajectory toward extinction, perhaps that's exactly what we need. The message was composed over the next 6 hours, a careful balance of desperation and dignity, hope, and honesty. It spoke of ancient civilizations under threat, of technologies and knowledge that would be lost forever, of billions of beings who sought only to continue existing in their own unique ways. It offered friendship, alliance, and shared knowledge to any who might answer. As the transmission arrays of Nexus Prime prepared to send humanity's first formal invitation to galactic politics, none of the Council representatives could have predicted that they had just awakened something that had been waiting in the outer darkness for exactly this moment. The message would take 4 standard days to reach the Sol system. The response would arrive in less than 2, and with it would come the first hint that the galaxy's understanding of warfare was about to change forever. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the observation deck of the UES Defiance, watching Earth slowly rotate below through the reinforced viewport. The planet looked peaceful from this distance, its blue oceans and swirling white clouds giving no hint of the industrial might hidden beneath those deceptively gentle features. She had received the alien transmission exactly 47 hours ago, and in that time, humanity had accomplished what the Galactic Council would have considered impossible. "Status report, Commander," she said without turning from the viewport, her voice carrying the calm authority that had earned her command of humanity's first interstellar fleet. Commander Marcus Webb, her chief of staff, consulted his tablet with practiced efficiency. His augmented reality display showed logistics data that would have overwhelmed most organic minds, but enhanced human neural processing made such information streams manageable. "Fleet assembly is complete, Admiral. We have 300 vessels ranging from destroyer class to our new dreadnought flagships. Total crew complement is approaching 200,000 personnel." Admiral Chen nodded, still watching Earth's rotation. "Weapon status? All ships are equipped with the latest kinetic bombardment systems, fusion torpedo arrays, and electromagnetic pulse generators. The engineering corps has finished installing the new gravitational manipulation drives on the capital ships. We're also carrying a full complement of our special warfare packages." Commander Webb's voice carried a note of pride mixed with anticipation. "And the message to the Council? Transmitted 12 hours ago on all frequencies they provided. Simple and direct as per your instructions. Message received. Assistance en route. Prepare for human arrival." Admiral Chun finally turned from the viewport, her expression serious but determined. The weight of representing humanity's first contact with galactic civilization rested heavily on her shoulders, but she had been chosen for this command because she understood both the magnitude of the opportunity and the potential consequences of failure. The alien message had been intercepted initially by the Deep Space Monitoring Station on Luna. Dr. Elizabeth Reyes, humanity's leading xenolinguistics expert, had worked with the station's AI systems to decode the transmission. What they discovered had immediately been classified at the highest levels and brought to the attention of the United Earth Space Command. "Tell me about our intelligence assessment of this Varex Empire," Admiral Chun said as they walked through the corridors of the Defiance toward the briefing room. Commander Webb accessed another data stream through his neural implants. Analysis suggests a collective consciousness that operates through biological and technological integration. They appear to convert conquered populations into processing units for their distributed intelligence network. Their expansion pattern indicates systematic rather than opportunistic conquest. They're not just taking territory, they're building something. They entered the briefing room, where Admiral Chin's senior staff had assembled. Captain David Park, head of the Tactical Division, was reviewing holographic battle scenarios with a team of strategists. Dr. Amelia Foster, the fleet's xenobiologist, was studying what little data they had on Varric physiology. Major Jessica Torres, commanding the Marine Expeditionary Force, was reviewing boarding and planetary assault protocols. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Chun announced, taking her position at the head of the conference table. We're about to make first contact with an interstellar civilization under circumstances none of our protocols anticipated. We're not explorers or diplomats. We're a rescue mission. The holographic display activated, showing the Galactic Council's data on Varric's expansion. The scale was staggering. Entire sectors of space converted to their influence, billions of lives absorbed into their collective. Captain Park whistled softly as he absorbed the tactical situation. Admiral, this enemy has defeated civilizations that have existed for millions of years. They've absorbed the combined military might of 47 species. What makes us think we can succeed where they've failed? Dr. Foster looked up from her biological analysis. Because we evolved differently. Look at these council species. They're all what we might call garden world evolutions. Stable climates, abundant resources, relatively peaceful evolutionary pressures. They developed intelligence through cooperation and social harmony. She manipulated the display to show Earth's geological and climatic history. We evolved in chaos. Ice ages that killed 90% of all life, supervolcano eruptions that blacked out the sun for years, asteroid impacts that reset the evolutionary clock repeatedly. We didn't develop intelligence despite hostile conditions. We developed it because of them. Major Torres leaned forward, her expression intense. Our entire military doctrine is based on asymmetric warfare, adaptive tactics, and what our enemies would call unfair advantages. These council species probably fight wars like formal duels. We fight wars like we're trying to survive extinction. Admiral Chin nodded approvingly. Exactly. The Varrics have adapted to defeat conventional military thinking. They've never faced unconventional military thinking backed by Deathworld evolution and industrial capacity. Commander Webb highlighted production statistics on the display. In the 47 hours since we received the transmission, Earth's military-industrial complex has produced approximately 50,000 tons of specialized ammunition, retrofitted our entire deep space fleet with experimental weapon systems, and manufactured enough supplies to sustain extended combat operations. The Council message indicated their response time from military decisions was measured in months. We measured hours and hours. Captain Park was studying the Varric ship designs that the Council had provided. Their vessels prioritize adaptation and integration systems. They're designed to absorb and convert enemy technology. But they're also larger and more complex than our ships. Bigger targets, more systems to disrupt. What's our tactical approach? Admiral Chin asked. Fit and run initially. Test their adaptation capabilities against kinetic weapons, energy weapons, and exotic technologies in quick succession. Don't give them time to adapt to any single system. If they're truly collective consciousness, we need to overwhelm their processing capacity. Dr. Foster added her perspective. Biological warfare might be effective. They integrate conquered species, which suggests they have mechanisms to interface with diverse biological systems. That could be a vulnerability we can exploit. Major Torres smiled grimly. My Marines are equipped with a full spectrum of human military innovation. Powered armor, genetic enhancement protocols, combat drugs that would be lethal to most organic life, and psychological conditioning that turns individual soldiers into force multipliers. If these Varrics want to integrate humans, they're going to discover why that's a bad idea. Admiral Chun felt a surge of confidence in her team and, more broadly, in humanity's chances. The galaxy's civilized species had tried to fight the Varrics with conventional military doctrine, formal tactics, and the kind of organized warfare that reflected their peaceful evolutionary backgrounds. Humanity was about to introduce them to the concept of total war as practiced by apex predators from a death world. "Time to departure?" she asked. "Fleet can be ready to jump in 6 hours," Commander Webb reported. "Our new gravitational drives will get us to the first Varex-controlled system in approximately 18 standard days." "Make it 12 days, Admiral Chen decided. "Push the drives beyond recommended parameters. If we're going to help these council species, we need to arrive before they lose another dozen worlds to Varex expansion." Dr. Foster looked concerned. "Admiral, we should consider the diplomatic implications of our arrival. These council species have no idea what humans are like. Our appearance alone might be unsettling to them, and our combat methods will definitely be shocking. Then, we'll have to make sure our actions speak louder than our appearance," Admiral Chen replied. "We're not going to the galaxy to make friends. We're going to save it. If that earns us allies along the way, excellent. If it earns us enemies, we'll deal with that too." As the briefing concluded and her staff dispersed to prepare their respective departments, Admiral Chen returned to the observation deck. Earth still rotated peacefully below, but now she could see the signs of mobilization that had transformed the planet in less than 2 days. Orbital shipyards working at maximum capacity, cargo vessels ferrying supplies to the fleet, and the constant traffic of military shuttles coordinating the largest space deployment in human history. Her personal communicator activated with a priority message from Earth's Planetary Defense Council. The face of General Harrison Cole, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, appeared on her display. "Admiral Chun, final authorization codes for Project Prometheus have been approved. You now have access to the full spectrum of experimental weapons systems, including the ones we hoped we'd never have to use." Admiral Chun felt a chill despite the comfortable temperature of the observation deck. "Understood, General. Let's hope the Varex make deployment unnecessary." "Sarah," General Cole's voice softened slightly, using her first name instead of her rank. "The entire planet is watching this. We're not just representing Earth anymore. We're representing the possibility that small, young civilizations can make a difference in a galaxy dominated by ancient empires. Don't feel pressure to win this war single-handedly. Just show them what humans do when someone we care about is in danger." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Chun alone with her thoughts and the view of her homeworld. In a few hours, the largest human fleet ever assembled would jump to interstellar space, carrying with them weapons and strategies that the galaxy had never seen. They would arrive in a war zone where civilizations millions of years older than humanity had already been defeated, and they would show the galaxy why evolution on a death world produces a very different kind of sentient species. As she watched Earth complete another rotation, Admiral Chun allowed herself a small smile. The Varex had spent eons perfecting their conquest of civilized worlds inhabited by reasonable, peaceful species. They had never tried to conquer angry primates from a planet that actively tried to kill everything on it. That was about to change. The bridge of the UES Defiance hummed with controlled tension as Admiral Chun watched the tactical display update in real time. 12 days of faster-than-light travel had brought the human fleet to the edge of the Kepler 442 system, where, according to Council intelligence, a Varex assimilation fleet was in the process of converting the Zalarian homeworld. "Sensor contact," announced Lieutenant Commander Kim Nakamura from the tactical station. Multiple large signatures in orbital space around Kepler 442b. Configuration matches Council data on Varex vessels. Admiral Chun studied the tactical hologram, watching as targeting data populated around 23 massive ships that dwarfed anything in the human fleet. Each Varex vessel was at least 3 kilometers long, their biomechanical designs suggesting a fusion of organic growth and technological construction that humanity had never encountered. Status on the planet? Massive energy discharges detected across all continents, reported Dr. Foster from the science station. Whatever they're doing down there, it's planet-wide and appears to be converting the entire biosphere. Captain Park highlighted the enemy formation on the display. "Admiral, those ships are positioned for orbital bombardment and resource extraction, not defense. They're not expecting resistance." Admiral Chun felt the familiar calm that preceded action settle over her mind. This was the moment that would define not just this battle, but humanity's role in galactic civilization. The Varex had grown complacent through countless easy victories against civilized opponents. They were about to discover what happened when they encountered uncivilized ones. Signal to fleet. Attack pattern Delta 7. Primary targets are the largest vessels. We hit them fast, hard, and from multiple vectors simultaneously. She paused, looking around at her bridge crew. Remember, these things adapt to whatever we throw at them. We only get one chance with each weapon system before they learn to counter it. Commander Webb relayed the orders through quantum communication arrays, and the human fleet began its approach. Unlike the formal battle lines that Varex forces had learned to expect from Council militaries, the human ships moved in chaotic, unpredictable patterns that made targeting calculations nearly impossible. Enemy ships are reacting, Lieutenant Commander Nakamura reported. They're moving to intercept, but their formation suggests they're confused by our approach pattern. That confusion was exactly what Admiral Chun had hoped for. Council species fought wars like chess matches. Logical, strategic, predictable. Humans fought wars like street brawls. Dirty, adaptive, and absolutely committed to winning by any means necessary. All ships, weapons free. Execute. The opening salvo of humanity's first interstellar war lit up space with devastating brilliance. Kinetic projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed struck Varex hulls with the force of nuclear weapons. Fusion torpedoes followed microseconds behind, their warheads designed to create brief artificial suns that could melt through any known material. Electromagnetic pulse generators fired coordinated bursts intended to overload the biomechanical systems that controlled Varex vessels. The results were spectacular and immediate. 3 Varex ships simply ceased to exist, their massive hulls vaporized by kinetic impacts they had never been designed to withstand. 2 more went dark as electromagnetic pulses shut down their integrated biological systems. The remaining vessels began to adapt, their hulls shifting and reconfiguring to counter the human weapons. Adaptive response confirmed, Captain Park announced. Remaining ships are hardening against kinetic impact and developing electromagnetic shielding. As expected, Admiral Chin replied calmly. Switch to gravitational weapons. Full spread all ships. The gravitational manipulation systems that had been installed on human vessels were experimental technology based on theoretical physics that most Council species considered impossible. The weapons created localized distortions in space-time that could crush ships from within or tear them apart with tidal forces. 4 more Varex vessels were destroyed before the remaining ships could adapt, their hulls crumpling like paper as artificial gravity fields exceeded their structural tolerances. But the survivors were learning, their biomechanical systems evolving countermeasures in real time. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the largest Varex ship, Commander Webb reported. Put it through. The main display flickered, then showed a sight that made several bridge crew members step back instinctively. The Varex collective consciousness appeared as a writhing mass of organic tissue interwoven with technological components. Thousands of eyes from dozens of different species stared out from the amalgamation, and when it spoke, its voice was a harmony of every race it had absorbed. Unknown entities, you interfere with Varex integration protocols. Your resistance is noted and will be incorporated. Surrender your vessels for processing, and your unique capabilities will be preserved within the collective. Admiral Chun stepped forward, her expression cold and determined. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Space Command. You are in violation of the territorial sovereignty of allied worlds. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Varex collective seemed to study her through the transmission, its multitude of eyes focusing with predatory interest. Bipedal carbon-based life form. Neural complexity suggests high intelligence. Aggressive posturing indicates warrior culture. Classification. Potentially valuable addition to collective. You will be processed with priority preservation of combat instincts. That's not going to happen, Admiral Chin replied. This is your final warning. Withdraw from this system immediately. Withdrawal is not optimal. Integration will proceed. Resistance will be incorporated. The transmission ended, and immediately the remaining Varex ships began moving toward the human fleet in a coordinated formation that demonstrated their collective tactical thinking. But their approach was methodical, predictable, exactly what Admiral Chin had hoped for. Captain Park, initiate Project Prometheus authorization. Release the experimental packages. Captain Park's face went pale, but he activated the quantum-encrypted authorization sequence that Admiral Chun provided. Deep within the hulls of the human capital ships, storage bays opened to reveal humanity's most disturbing military innovations. The first wave consisted of what the development teams had called adaptive hunter-killers, autonomous AI systems housed in small, fast ships that could think and fight independently. Unlike the collective consciousness of the Verrex, these AI systems were based on predator psychology and individual initiative. Each hunter-killer was programmed to identify and exploit weaknesses in enemy systems, learn from the mistakes of its fellows, and coordinate without central control. 100 hunter-killers swarmed toward the Verrex formation like a school of cybernetic piranha. Their attack pattern was chaotic, individualistic, and completely unpredictable. Some targeted weapons systems, others went for engines, still others tried to penetrate hulls and attack from within. The Verrex collective struggled to adapt to threats that changed moment by moment based on individual AI decision-making. Second wave, deploy biological packages, Admiral Chin ordered. Dr. Foster activated the release sequence for humanity's most ethically questionable weapons. Biological warfare had been banned in human conflicts for centuries, but the threat of galactic extinction had prompted the development of organisms specifically designed to disrupt collective consciousness systems. Modified viruses and bacteria designed to interfere with neural integration spread through space in self-contained pods that could survive in vacuum indefinitely. When they made contact with Verrex vessels, they began attacking the biological components that allowed the collective to function. Individual organisms within the Verrex ships began experiencing neural isolation, breaking their connection to the collective consciousness. The effect was immediate and devastating. Verrex ships began moving erratically as their collective coordination broke down. Some vessels turned on each other, their individual components fighting for control. Others simply went dead in space as their integrated systems failed. Third wave, Admiral Chan announced grimly. Psychological warfare. Major Torres activated the final experimental package, broadcasting systems that transmitted information designed to cause confusion and conflict within collective consciousness networks. The transmissions included contradictory orders, false memories, and cognitive patterns that forced the Verrex collective to waste processing power on internal conflicts. The remaining Verrex ships were now completely disorganized, their collective consciousness fragmenting under attacks they had never been designed to handle. The largest vessel attempted to flee, but human pursuit ships equipped with gravitational grappling systems prevented its escape. Admiral, Dr. Foster called out, her voice filled with fascination and horror. The Verrex ships are beginning to break apart. Not structurally, the individual organisms that make up their crews are separating from the collective. Some of them appear to be trying to communicate independently. Admiral Chan watched as the mighty Verrex fleet that had conquered hundreds of worlds was systematically dismantled by weapons and tactics they had never encountered. It was a complete victory, but she felt no satisfaction. This had been necessary, but it had also been a demonstration of humanity's capacity for warfare that would fundamentally change how the galaxy viewed Earth. Signal the Council, she ordered. Inform them that the Kepler 442 system has been liberated. Also transmit our tactical data on Verrex vulnerabilities. If we're going to win this war, every Council fleet needs to understand how to fight these things properly. Commander Webb coordinated the transmissions, while Admiral Chin contemplated the implications of what they had just accomplished. In less than an hour, humanity had achieved what the combined Council fleets had been unable to do in years of warfare. They had not just defeated a Verrex fleet. They had completely disrupted the collective consciousness that made the Verrex effective. But they had also revealed capabilities that would terrify the very civilizations they had come to help. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Nakamura announced, "We're receiving transmissions from the planet's surface. The Zolarians are alive down there, and they're asking for assistance." Admiral Chun smiled for the first time since the battle began. Deploy rescue shuttles, medical teams, engineering corps, and enough Marines to establish a secure perimeter. Let's show these people what humans do after we want to fight. As rescue operations began and the human fleet established orbital security around the liberated world, Admiral Chun composed a report to Earth's Planetary Defense Council. Humanity had just announced its presence on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. The galaxy was about to learn that evolution on a death world produced more than just survivors. It produced protectors who would go to any extreme to defend what they chose to care about. And humanity had just chosen to care about every species threatened by the Varix Empire. High Counselor Zeth Kree stared at the tactical display in stunned disbelief. The data stream from the Kepler 442 system showed something that violated every principle of warfare the Galactic Council understood. In less than 1 standard hour, the humans had not just defeated a Varix assimilation fleet, they had completely obliterated it using methods that seemed to border on the impossible. "Replay the battle analysis again," he requested, his crystalline exoskeleton dim with confusion. Dr. Moonrunner manipulated the holographic display, showing the engagement from multiple perspectives. The human fleet approached using no recognizable formation or tactical doctrine. Their initial assault utilized kinetic weapons at velocities that should have been impossible to achieve with their ship masses. When the Varix began adapting, the humans immediately switched to completely different weapon systems. She highlighted specific moments in the battle. Here, they deployed autonomous artificial intelligences that operated independently rather than as part of a collective network. The Varix collective consciousness couldn't adapt to individual decision-making patterns. Then, they used biological warfare agents specifically designed to disrupt neural integration protocols. Ambassador Thorek's rocky form shifted, creating sounds of mineral stress that indicated extreme agitation. Biological warfare is banned under 17 different galactic conventions. These humans employed weapons of mass destruction without hesitation against an enemy that was converting an entire planetary population into processing units. Captain Quinn pointed out, her bioluminescent patches flickering with rapid thought patterns. The human tactics were extreme, but they saved 12 billion Zalarian lives. Elder Cyrus leaned forward in his environmental pod, studying the human ship configurations. "What concerns me most is not what they did, but how quickly they adapted their approach. The Varix fleet was expecting conventional resistance based on our previous engagements. These humans fought as if they had been studying Varix tactics for years." Representative Kick Sanders' psychic emanations carried notes of both admiration and fear. "My queens have analyzed the human combat patterns. They show characteristics of apex predator psychology, individual initiative, adaptive tactics, and willingness to accept casualties in pursuit of objectives. These beings evolved as hunters, not prey." The chamber's central communications array activated, displaying an incoming transmission marker from the human fleet. High Counselor Zeth Kree authorized the connection, unsure what to expect from their unexpected saviors. Admiral Chen's image materialized in the center of the chamber, her human features causing several representatives to shift nervously in their environmental pods. She was bipedal, obviously mammalian, with forward-facing predator eyes and dental structures that suggested omnivorous feeding patterns. But it was her expression that truly unsettled the council members, calm, confident, and completely unimpressed by the gathered representatives of galactic civilization. "High Counselor Zeth Kree," Admiral Chen began, her voice carrying authority that transcended species barriers. "The Kepler 442 system has been liberated. Varix forces have been eliminated, and we're currently providing humanitarian assistance to the surviving Zalarian population." High Counselor Zeth Kree found his voice despite his shock. "Admiral Chun, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I express our profound gratitude for your intervention. Your tactics were unconventional." A slight smile crossed Admiral Chen's features. "Unconventional situations require unconventional solutions. We've analyzed the Varix collective consciousness system and identified several critical vulnerabilities that your fleet can exploit. We're transmitting detailed tactical data to assist your military planning." Dr. Moonrunner accessed the incoming data stream, her scientific excitement overriding diplomatic protocols. "Admiral, this information suggests methods for disrupting collective consciousness networks that we never considered. Some of these approaches seem to violate our understanding of neural integration physics." "Your understanding is based on studying civilized species," Admiral Chun replied bluntly. "You've never encountered forced neural integration used as a weapon of conquest. We have extensive experience with interrogation techniques and psychological warfare. The principles are the same, just applied on a larger scale." Ambassador Thorek's mineral composition shifted dramatically, indicating severe discomfort. Admiral, your methods appear to include weapons and tactics that violate multiple interstellar agreements regarding the conduct of warfare. Admiral Chin's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered behind her eyes. Ambassador, those agreements were written by civilizations that had never faced an enemy committed to their complete extinction. The Variks don't take prisoners, they convert them. They don't negotiate terms, they impose integration. When facing an enemy that views your entire species as raw material for processing, conventional rules of engagement become irrelevant. Captain Quinn's bioluminescent patterns shifted to indicate intense curiosity. Admiral, our intelligence suggests that your species has extensive experience with large-scale warfare. Your tactical innovations suggest military traditions developed over significant time periods. Humanity has been at war with something for our entire evolutionary history. Admiral Chun confirmed matter-of-factly. Our planet, our climate, our predators, our diseases, and, unfortunately, each other. We developed military science not as a hobby, but as a survival necessity. The idea that war should be civilized or fair is a luxury that peaceful species can afford. We've never had that luxury. The implications of this statement sent ripples of unease throughout the council chamber. Species that had evolved in stable, abundant environments had developed warfare as a formal process governed by rules and conventions. The humans spoke of war as a fundamental aspect of existence, something to be mastered rather than regulated. Elder Cyrus spoke carefully, recognizing the delicate diplomatic situation. Admiral Chun, while we are grateful for your assistance, the Council must express concern about the long-term implications of your military capabilities. The weapons and tactics you've demonstrated could be used against peaceful civilizations as easily as against the Variks. Admiral Chun nodded, as if she had expected this concern. Elder Cyrus, that's absolutely correct. Humanity possesses the capability to conquer most Council species through military force. We could have arrived in this galaxy as conquerors rather than allies. The fact that we chose to respond to a plea for help rather than exploit your vulnerability should tell you something about our intentions. She paused, allowing that statement to sink in before continuing. But understand this, we didn't develop these capabilities to threaten peaceful species. We developed them because our homeworld is classified as a Class 12 death world, and survival required becoming very good at eliminating threats. The Variks represent the kind of threat we've been preparing to face our entire history. High Counselor Zeth Kree realized they were at a crossroads that would define galactic civilization for millennia to come. The humans offered salvation from the Variks' threat, but they also represented a fundamental shift in the balance of power. No longer would ancient, wise civilizations dominate through accumulated knowledge and diplomatic sophistication. The galaxy now contained a species that had weaponized evolution itself. Admiral, what are your intentions regarding continued operations against the Variks Empire? He asked. We intend to win this war, Admiral Chun replied without hesitation. Not just push them back or contain their expansion, completely eliminate their ability to threaten galactic civilization. The Variks' collective consciousness represents an existential threat to biodiversity and individual consciousness. As far as humanity is concerned, they need to be stopped permanently. Representative Kick Sanders' psychic emanations carried notes of alarm. Admiral, the Variks Empire spans thousands of systems. Complete elimination would require military operations on a scale that the galaxy has never witnessed. Then, the galaxy is about to witness something new, Admiral Chun said simply. Humanity has mobilized our entire industrial and military capacity for this conflict. We have 3,000 ships already in transit to Council space, with additional fleets being constructed at accelerated rates. We estimate 18 months for complete Variks elimination, assuming Council cooperation. The chamber fell silent as representatives absorbed the magnitude of what the humans were proposing. Military operations spanning thousands of systems, conducted at speeds that compressed traditional campaign timelines from decades to months, utilizing weapons and tactics that existing interstellar law had never contemplated. Dr. Moonrunner finally voiced a question that many were considering. Admiral, after the Variks threat is eliminated, what role does humanity envision for itself in galactic civilization? Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly, revealing something warmer beneath the military efficiency. Doctor, humanity didn't seek out galactic civilization. We were content to develop within our own system until we received your plea for help. We're not conquerors or empire builders. We're problem solvers. When this war is over, we intend to return to our own space and continue our development. But we'll remain available if the galaxy faces similar threats in the future. High Counselor Zeth felt both relief and lingering concern at this answer. The humans apparently had no territorial ambitions beyond their own system, but their willingness to intervene in galactic affairs could fundamentally change how interstellar politics functioned. Admiral Chun, the Council formally accepts your alliance offer and requests continued coordination in military operations against the Verex Empire. We also request permission to station Council observers with your fleets to document tactical innovations for implementation by our own forces. Agreed, Admiral Chun replied. We'll provide full tactical data and training assistance to any Council military that wants to adapt our methods. The more forces we have employing effective anti-Verex tactics, the faster we can end this threat. The transmission concluded, leaving the Council chamber in thoughtful silence. The galaxy's ancient civilizations were struggling to comprehend how quickly their fundamental assumptions about warfare, diplomacy, and interstellar relations had changed. What they didn't yet understand was that this was only the beginning. Humanity hadn't just brought new weapons to an existing conflict. They had brought a completely different approach to problem-solving that would transform every aspect of galactic civilization. The Verex Empire was about to discover what happened when a collective consciousness encountered individual initiative backed by species-wide determination. And the Galactic Council was about to learn what it meant to have apex predators as allies. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, humanity's newest and most powerful warship, watching through the viewport as the final Verex stronghold came into view. The massive space station orbited a dead star, drawing energy from stellar remnants to power the collective consciousness that had once threatened to consume the galaxy. After 18 months of relentless warfare, this was all that remained of the Verex Empire. Fleet status report, she requested, though she already knew the numbers by heart. Commander Webb, now bearing the insignia of Fleet Admiral for his role in coordinating the multi-species alliance, consulted his tactical displays. 7,000 ships in final attack formation, 2,000 human vessels, 3,000 Council Fleet ships, and 2,000 vessels from liberated species who have chosen to participate in the final assault. The numbers represented more than just military might. They told the story of how the galaxy had changed during humanity's war against the Verex. Council species that had fought defensively for centuries had learned aggressive tactics from human instructors. Liberated worlds had rebuilt their militaries using hybrid technologies that combined Council science with human innovation. Most importantly, individual initiative and adaptive thinking had spread throughout galactic civilization like a beneficial virus. Status on the Verex core station? Admiral Chen asked. Captain Park, now Admiral Park in command of the siege operations, highlighted the enemy installation on the tactical display. The station contains the primary collective consciousness matrix for the entire Verex Empire. Intelligence suggests approximately 50 million individual organisms integrated into the core system, representing the leadership of their entire species. Dr. Foster, whose biological warfare expertise had proven devastatingly effective throughout the campaign, added her analysis. The collective consciousness is attempting to consolidate all remaining Verex assets into a single defensive network. They're trying to create an impregnable fortress of integrated minds. Admiral Chun studied the massive installation, remembering the first time humanity had encountered Verex forces 18 months ago. Back then, the galaxy had seemed doomed, ancient civilizations powerless against an enemy that absorbed everything they could bring to bear. Now, the Verex were reduced to a single stronghold, surrounded by the combined fleets of 100 liberated worlds. Admiral Chun, came a transmission from High Counselor Zeth aboard the Council command ship. All Allied fleets report ready for final assault. The galaxy awaits your orders. The irony was not lost on Admiral Chun. She had arrived in Council space as the representative of a single Deathworld species, responding to a desperate plea for help. Now, she was commanding the largest military alliance in galactic history, preparing to eliminate a threat that had terrorized civilizations for millennia. "Signal all ships," she announced. "This is Admiral Chun to all Allied fleets." 18 months ago, the Varex Empire controlled thousands of systems and threatened the extinction of galactic civilization. Today, we stand at the threshold of their final stronghold, ready to ensure that such a threat can never rise again. She paused, looking around at her bridge crew, humans, Zalarians, Etherians, and representatives from dozens of species who had learned to work together during the long campaign. The Varex believed that individual consciousness was inefficient, that diversity was weakness, that resistance was futile. They were wrong on every count. Individual initiative created adaptive tactics they couldn't counter. Diversity provided multiple approaches to every problem they presented. And resistance backed by determination and innovation, proved to be the one force they couldn't integrate or absorb. The tactical display showed 7,000 ships holding position around the Varex stronghold, each one representing a species that had refused to surrender their individuality to collective consciousness. It was the most beautiful sight Admiral Chun had ever witnessed. "All ships begin final assault. Show them what happens when you threaten the things we choose to protect." The opening salvo illuminated space with the fury of 1,000 suns. Kinetic projectiles from human railguns, energy beams from Council heavy cruisers, gravitational weapons that twisted spacetime itself, and exotic technologies developed by species driven to desperation and innovation by 18 months of total war. But this was more than just an overwhelming firepower demonstration. It was a coordinated symphony of destruction orchestrated by hundreds of species working in perfect harmony. The Varex station's defenses activated immediately, creating energy shields that could absorb the output of small stars, deploying defensive drones by the millions, and attempting to use their collective consciousness to coordinate countermeasures. But they had spent 18 months learning to counter individual tactical approaches. They had never faced the combined innovation of an entire galaxy working together. "First wave impacts confirmed," Admiral Park reported. "Station shields are holding, but power fluctuations suggest they're struggling with the diversity of attack methods." Admiral Chun had expected this. The Varex collective consciousness was still formidable, even in its reduced state. But humanity had taught the galaxy an important lesson. When conventional approaches fail, you try unconventional ones. "Deploy the psychological warfare packages," she ordered. Across the Allied fleet, broadcasting systems activated that transmitted carefully crafted information designed to create chaos within collective consciousness networks. But these weren't the crude, psychological attacks humanity had used in early engagements. These were sophisticated programs developed by hundreds of species, each contributing their unique understanding of consciousness and neural integration. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Varex collective began fragmenting as contradictory information streams overwhelmed their processing capacity. Individual organisms within the station started experiencing neural isolation, breaking their connection to the collective consciousness that defined their species. "Station defensive systems are failing," Dr. Foster announced with satisfaction. "The collective consciousness is losing cohesion. Individual Varex are beginning to act independently." But Admiral Chun wasn't finished. The galaxy had suffered too much under Varex oppression for her to be satisfied with mere victory. This needed to be a demonstration that would ensure such a threat could never rise again. "Activate Project Revelation," she commanded. Deep within the human fleet, specialized transmitters began broadcasting on frequencies that the Varex collective consciousness used for internal communication. But instead of attacking or disrupting those communications, they were adding something new: memories, experiences, and perspectives from every species that had suffered under Varex conquest. The liberated Zalarians had provided recordings of their world's conversion process, the terror and anguish of watching their civilization absorbed into the collective. The Etherians had contributed their ancient memories of peaceful civilizations destroyed by Varex expansion. Dozens of other species had shared their experiences of loss, resistance, and eventual liberation. For the first time in their existence, the Varex collective consciousness experienced empathy. They felt the fear of their victims, understood the loss they had caused, comprehended the scope of their crimes against galactic civilization. Individual Varex throughout the station began disconnecting from the collective voluntarily, unable to bear the weight of what they had participated in. Admiral Dr. Foster said quietly, the collective consciousness is collapsing. They're not fighting anymore. They're trying to shut themselves down. Admiral Chun watched as the massive station went dark, its weapons systems falling silent, its defenses dropping, its collective consciousness fragmenting into millions of individual minds grappling with the sudden awareness of their actions. It was a more complete victory than she had dared hope for. Signal all fleets to cease fire, she ordered. Prepare boarding parties for humanitarian assistance. The final irony of the Varex War was that it ended not with their destruction, but with their salvation. The same psychological warfare techniques that had broken their collective consciousness had also freed individual Varex to experience genuine emotion for the first time. Many chose to end their existence rather than live with the guilt, but others requested assistance in learning to exist as individuals. 3 months later, Admiral Chun stood once again on the observation deck of the UES Defiance, preparing to depart Council space for the return journey to Earth. The galaxy she was leaving behind was fundamentally different from the one she had entered 2 years earlier. High Counselor Zethkree materialized via hologram for their final diplomatic meeting. Admiral Chun, the Galactic Council has voted unanimously to establish permanent diplomatic relations with humanity. We offer you full membership in the Council, with all the privileges and responsibilities that entails. Admiral Chun smiled at the offer she had expected, but would politely decline. High Counselor, humanity appreciates the honor, but we're not ready for that level of galactic involvement. We're still young as a spacefaring species. We need time to develop our own identity before becoming part of a larger political structure. Your people have already changed galactic civilization forever, High Counselor Zethkree observed. Individual initiative, adaptive thinking, and aggressive problem-solving have spread throughout Council space. Our military academies now teach courses on human tactical innovation. Our diplomatic corps studies Earth's approach to alliance building. Even our scientists have adopted your species' tendency to question established theories. Admiral Chun nodded, recognizing the truth in his words. Change was inevitable once different approaches to consciousness and existence met each other. Humanity learned as much from the Council species as we taught. The galaxy is stronger now because it has both ancient wisdom and young innovation working together. What will humanity do now? High Counselor Zethkree asked. Admiral Chun looked out at the stars, thinking about Earth waiting for her fleet's return, about the children who would grow up in a universe where galactic civilization knew about humanity's existence. We'll continue growing, learning, and developing our potential. We'll explore our local stellar neighborhood and work on solving the problems that still challenge us. And if the galaxy ever faces another threat that requires our particular talents, you know how to reach us. The hologram nodded respectfully. The galaxy will not forget what humanity accomplished here. When species throughout Council space tell their children stories about heroes, they will speak of the day the Deathworld saviors answered our call for help. As the human fleet prepared for departure, Admiral Chun reflected on what her species had accomplished. They had come to Council space to save ancient civilizations and had ended up teaching the galaxy new ways to think about consciousness, individuality, and the power of cooperation between diverse forms of life. The Varex had sought to eliminate diversity in favor of collective efficiency. Humanity had proven that diversity itself was the most powerful force in the universe, not despite differences between species, but because of them. The journey home would take 30 days, giving Admiral Chun time to write her final report to Earth's leadership. But she already knew how it would begin. Mission accomplished. The galaxy is safe, its civilizations are free, and humanity has proven that sometimes the best answer to an impossible problem is to refuse to accept that it's impossible. Behind them, 7,000 ships from 100 different worlds watched the human fleet depart, carrying with them the knowledge that somewhere in the Outer Rim territories, a young species from a death world stood ready to help if the galaxy ever needed heroes again. The stars themselves seemed to burn brighter as humanity returned to the darkness between worlds, carrying the gratitude of an entire galaxy, and the satisfaction of having proved that evolution on a hostile world creates more than just survivors. It creates protectors who will cross the void itself to defend what they choose to care about. And the universe was vast enough for many more such journeys.